Hello everyone, this is Rochaika Malcolm Sergeant at Arms from the Rochaika Club of Bombay Midtown. Okay.
Oh, sorry, you're talking about
Not an issue. We welcome Kiran. Okay.
Hello.
It's really nice to have you here. I think before my introduction getting deep, I think we all want to hear something from you. So let's have a fun introduction from your end.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, hello. Sorry to interrupt your start. My name is Kiran Bhat. I'm an Indian-American novelist, poet, traveler. I've been all over the world. I've lived in many different countries, and I am very excited and to trying to bring different element of diversity, we can say, to India, bringing different indigenous cultures, global cultures to India, and teaching people how to think more globally, understand different global cultures from Indian perspective.
Oh wow, that's very much interesting. The key aspect is I've also been outside India, but
Where did you grow up?
I didn't grow up outside India.
Okay.
I just went for my masters out there.
Oh, you've already done your masters.
Yeah.
Which country?
Yeah, UK.
Oh, lovely. I lived in London for 2 months. I love London. Which part of UK were you in?
I was in Birmingham, but I used to
Birmingham.
travel a lot
I had
to
a
London.
cousin in Birmingham.
Yeah. So yeah. So
Yeah,
thank you
London
so
is
much.
much more interesting to stay in. But anyways,
My university was in
I
Birmingham.
what can you do?
Okay, so let's go dig dive and let's go ahead. So the most intriguing part is I think I would really love for our viewers to understand what is your coming out story and what is your journey, like understanding, because I think today's generation finds it very difficult to actually even go and commit to the world. Okay, in fact it becomes slightly difficult, but I think now things are changing. But how is it through your
Yeah,
part as
I would
well?
love to also learn from your perspectives
Definitely,
how it has been.
yeah.
I would say for myself, well, first of all, I identify as a he/him. I am also a gay person. I grew up in the US South in a state called Georgia in the 1990s, early 2000s. It was a very different time period than what we know as time now. In all the world, the 90s and 2000s are very different than what we know now. And it was a time where there was a lot of stigma, a lot of lack of media discussion in any country at that time, except maybe certain key places and certain key urban spaces. But it was a time when LGBT voices were still sort of new to people, and the idea of, I think at that time, to be LGBT was very much associated with hedonism, with sin, and it's not something that people really talked about. So I grew up in a time when it was a little difficult to even consider such things, and there was a lot of loneliness. There was a sense that there was no one really around like you, that liked the same things that you, thought like you, and it was not, and also for different reasons. Like I also am a very different-minded person, and I also grew up in a different country with a different cultural and racial background. So there were many reasons to feel excluded from society. And I think, but queerness is certainly a huge element of it, particularly since I grew up in a part of the world which has a very strong concept of sin. And that concept, it was a very Protestant, conservative sort of background, the Bible Belt basically. And I grew up, and I also grew up in a South Indian family, which was also very orthodox, and not horribly orthodox by even South Indian standards, but still orthodox enough, and they've changed a lot. But there was not a lot of space to feel welcome in the world, that I happened to be a certain way, and that whatever I was in sort of resistance to the way that the outside world would perceive that which I should be and what I happen to be.
Brilliant. I think it can also be a generation difference now. I think the way how Gen Z see it, the way how millennials see it is a massive difference, and the perspective also changes.
But one can also say that you'll meet millennials who are very open-minded, Gen Z people who are not even aware of such things. So everything depends on the background, but certainly more than millennial versus Gen Z, I would say it is also about the time period you grew up in and the conditions of the time period.
Definitely.
But
So
certainly.
Yeah.
But certainly you'll meet many people who are millennials who are very open and who are very understanding.
True that.
It depends on a lot of things.
Makes sense. Thank you so much. So now, so I would also want to know, like, how is your identity, like, as you have a very rich professional life as well, so how is your identity helping you shaping your personality, and also getting into your professional life?
It seeps into everything. So I can be a novelist and poet, and I'm a person who writes and travels. I was, for 10 years, I was just traveling, hopping across the world and writing different places. I've now visited actually 177 countries. So I've actually seen most of the world except 18 places. I've lived all over. I spent time in Brazil, I spent time in Russia, I spent time in Indonesia, China. So I have a fairly wide perspective in how different cultures not only view LGBT but culture. I also happen to inhabit different spaces as an LGBT person. For me, to be a traveler, to be a nomad, to be a person who tries to travel, who happens to have sex and enjoys time with men, it's a huge part of everything I do and everything who I am. And I mostly maybe faced resistance in my early years. In my later years, I've also had a little bit of a freedom or liberation because I've chosen to live outside of normative ideas of culture, understanding. I would teach online, I would teach English online, and then I'd spend say 5-6 months in Peru, 5-6 months in Kenya, something like that. So that whole lifestyle itself, because you choose to live nomadically and you live outside of your society, but also society as a whole, you learn to appreciate just the feeling of selfhood, aloneness, just traveling and being a nomad. I think all of that shapes who I am. And so all my values come from that.
That's really great, and that's something very interesting as well. Just a very curious question: which was one of the favorite places where you actually enjoyed yourself?
So many places are there. To be honest, I would tell you that there's so many places. I've been to Sao Paulo. I mean, the last place that I explored, which is really a queer-friendly place, was Sao Paulo, Brazil. I had gotten nominated for a Brazilian award for one of my books, and so I was doing events in different parts of Brazil. And it was interesting to live in Sao Paulo, which is a really gay city. Like their Pride has 2 million people who attend. You go to Sao Paulo and you see people all over the place who are trans, gay, and so. But that is just for enjoy. I mean, I like a lot of cities in the world. I love Bombay, I love New York, I love Johannesburg, I love London. Favorite spot in the world is really hard to say. I think when you've traveled as much as I have, you really see the good and bad of all humans, all places. I think we romanticize places, one when we're doing bad in our own life and we want to look forward to something. Okay. But in reality, all the world can have equally deplorable and interesting people, and it has less to do with your background or your nationality and more to do with your individual interests and pursuits. But certainly there are certain places. I love big global cities where you meet really a wide range of people. So places like Mumbai, London, Sao Paulo, New York are definitely very high on my list.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I think there is one important thing which we want to understand is now, with so much coming in, financial element is also a very, very key aspect. So how does financial element come into the entire picture, and how has it been from your side as well?
I'll tell you two stories. One is when I was a traveler and a nomad, I was teaching English online. When one teaches English online, you can live in any part of the world, and as long as you have your computer, you're making your $10 to $12 euros an hour. And most countries, 10 to 12 euros an hour is pretty good. I mean, not if you're living in the West, but if you're living in most places, that is mandatory. If you want to find a job as a digital nomad, then you can just freely travel while also teaching or doing your work from your laptop. That is one thing. Now, since 2020, when my first novel, We of the Forsaken World, was published, I have only been working and living as a writer. And of course, I have books like my novel, We of the Forsaken World, and my poetry collection, Speaking in Tongues. I would not say I make my income off of those. Those are mostly projects to share my work, and then however hundreds or thousands of people read them, then that is there. But I have another novel called Kiran, which I do earn an income from, and I'd like to share because I have some insight in relation to earning money as a novelist. Sure. So I have a novel I publish, it's called Kiran. It takes place in 365 different places in the world. Now how it does that is that it imagines a different, there's three characters, mother, father, son. Okay. Mother's a housewife, father's a doctor, and son is a gay person living away from the family. And the story from 2020 to 2029, how these people learn to embrace themselves for being different, and they learn to accept themselves despite their differences. Now, the way the story is told is there's an archetype. These are not characters, these are archetypes. And the story takes those characters and imagines them into a new country. Like, what if mother was from Fiji? What if father was from Turkmenistan? What if son was living in Buenos Aires? And so each of the 365 installments, they are published over the course of a decade. And each one is a little slice of life of different countries in the world. Okay. And they're published in real time. So if I imagine a story, 31st May 2025, set in Honolulu, Hawaii, it will be published at 9 a.m. Honolulu time, as if it's a story that's actually happening in real life. And it's sent on a newsletter to my different readers. So you subscribe to the novel through a web page. The novel costs 100 rupees a month to subscribe, and then you get the story sent in real time to your emails if it's a real thing happening. So that is, so basically I have combined publishing a novel with newsletter, and it's a novel kind of disseminating like globalization itself. So This is a book from which, because there's an active membership fee, it's a little bit like the Patreon OnlyFans model, in which you pay a certain amount a month to read it, but it's cheap relative to those models. I can earn an income based on the amount of people. So I have about 1,900 subscribers now.
Wow.
So based on that amount, I can earn a decent amount of money. Of course, if it goes up to 10,000, I'll become like a rich person. But right now, I'm earning well enough. So one thing I would tell to anyone, and I say this sometimes when I go to other places and talk as well, is that I think we live in a time, of course, being a doctor, engineer is very prestigious and everyone wants to be a doctor, engineer. But such jobs are getting so over inundated with people as well. And I think in Instagram era, in the social media era, it's really nice to find a niche, find something only you can do, and think how can I monetize it? Not because I want to make money off it, but because I'm good at it, people like my content, and I can make money off it. So I would recommend anyone. I think what you're good at, dancing, comedy, something, anything, even it could, I think things that combine, like medicine with comedy, medicine with dancing, I think those, like finding some unique combination that no one else is doing is something valuable. Then find a way, how can I, put this online, put it on YouTube, put it on Instagram, put it on Patreon, put it on something that I can earn income from. And then the more unique and the more different it is, sometimes it's hard to stand out in a saturated market, but doing something really unique and different, sometimes if you can catch that right, if you can catch something good, you can be successful at it. So
Definitely.
I would strongly recommend anyone to consider such things if you want to go off the beaten path and you want to try something different and you want to make some money doing it.
Makes sense. I think we would definitely want to understand that where did that passion for writing ignite in you, or where did that passion actually ignited? Because I mean, this is something which is very interesting, and I think a lot of people also think of writing. So I mean, this connection, I mean, where did it start? Like, where did that spark hit off in your
I
life?
will tell you it is something similar also to the LGBT narrative, and that I was growing up, and I again grew up in a place where I had a little bit of antagonism both from society and both from my family. So I ended up, unfortunately, I was outed to my parents. I was at a debate camp, and I had said something which was construed as sexual harassment. It was joking, but the person construed as sexual harassment. And then the counselor outed me as gay to my parents, which resulted in them having a shock and a real issue. And they ended up sending me to reparative therapy to try to cure me of my homosexuality. That was in 2007. So that was a very traumatic time in my life. So in order to vent my feelings, I started to write poetry. I started to write about my feelings, and people would start to and say it's good. Say it was good. And then I started to get an ego. Oh, people think I'm a good writer. And then I went to NYU, New York, and it was completely different than Georgia. So it was a chance to go to somewhere very different and much more open and woke and progressive. And then I pursued writing actively. I found mentors. I found people who supported me. And I then went to Madrid, Spain. I realized I had sort of a darshan where I was in a particular building, which is a cathedral mosque synagogue in Segovia, one of the cities of Spain. And I sort of had this sudden flowing of, all the peoples of the world, like tribes and different communities and all this. And I suddenly realized I want to write all the world into one novel. I want to try to write global novels, and I want to travel and understand planet Earth and then write from a planet Earth perspective. So my parents obviously had a huge issue with that as well, because who makes money doing that? They wanted me to at least go into teaching or something. But I fought with them, and I decided, you know what, I'll do it on my own money. I'll just go. I found a job teaching online. I just did it. I traveled and taught online. And I wrote my novel in my spare time. The novel which was Be Able to Second World, which became my first novel, published in 2001. So.
Wow, that's like a really great, and I mean a story which was actually inspiring as well. Like, I mean, irrespective of whatever, I think a lot of people want to follow the passion, but they eventually don't have a way out.
Yeah.
That's I
think we all have to learn to, if we're meant to do something on this planet, we will always face people telling us yes, no, no, yes, but you have to do, we were given a life, Yes, we belong to our mother, father, family, but we also belong to the universe. We belong to greater forces, and we ultimately have to do what that which we are, believe is right. So I believe that what I wrote and what I had to say was a value. It had to be pushed out, and so I chose to live that life. And I lived in a line with Sahitya, with what I believed my karma was, what I felt dharma bestowed onto me. So sometimes that's not easy for family to understand, or for society to understand, but sometimes you have to live your life and do what is right for you. And sometimes we're not rewarded. Sometimes life is difficult and we're not rewarded. Most people are not rewarded, but if it's what we're meant to do, we simply have to go out and do it.
That's I think that's something which everyone should hear, and that's really motivating at the end of the day as well. So one thing I would want to understand, I think you will be the very right person to answer. You've seen so much. What are the certain changes you think can make it a better place for the entire society? Or I mean, because you have seen different cultures, you have seen different kind of mindset, different kind of personalities. So I mean, what are those few changes which can be done in the society which makes it not a better but a slight different society, like a more inclusive society?
We project so much from our ego, we project so much from our selfhood, from the sense of selfhood, from the sense of trying to come outwards and be something in this world and universe. We claim so much. We all claim possession. This is my identity, this is my family, this is my nation, this is my heritage. And we put so much pride and ego and harm into the world because we want that which we believe in. Say, because I'm Indian and because I'm Hindu, I believe I have to have certain things. And when people take those things from me, I believe that I wonder, they might be saying that they're taking from a certain religion or community, but I take it as if they're taking from me, even though I've never met this person. This person might be 300 kilometers and a completely different religion or something. But I create so much from my ego, and I believe all that which belongs to this world ought to belong to me, and therefore anyone else who take from that which is from this identity or label deserve to be reprimanded or punished or hurt. We put so much of possession into our identities, what we see ourselves as, and how we believe the world ought to see that. So those borders that we create, that this is me, this is the other, the you, this is the person from this space, this is the person from that space. We put so much energy into defending our lines, whether it is the selfhood line, the male line, the Indian line, the religion line. And I think once we learn that everyone, there's lakhs of people doing this, there are lakhs, crores of people doing this, and they all have this exact same thing they're doing, and each individual has the right to be who they are on this planet. And I think that if we could learn to accept that no matter how a person lives, as long as they're not actually harming, killing someone, stealing someone, the innate kind of moral norms that all religions and cultures have created, we ought to give the people the right to live their life and to have that right to existence, to be who they are and live as the universe gave them.
Makes sense. I mean,
so I hope more people would be willing to see the world that way and live that.
I mean, that's a different perspective on how you can look at things, and I think that is more overwhelming at times. And I think, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're doing what you like and if you're just enjoying every minute which you spend, I think that's a wonderful way to live as well. Yeah.
I
So,
agree.
yeah.
And I also believe that sometimes what leads us to is joy, pleasure, to happiness. It's almost, I sometimes wonder if it is karma speaking to us in a certain way. Like that is karma telling you're doing karma, you know?
Yeah.
That is how we're receiving the tendrils of the universe aligning us and moving us in a direction.
Make sense. So now we're coming towards the end, and I think this is something which we enjoyed what you've said, and I think we've learned a lot from a perspective which is something which, I mean, people of our age would love to understand, comprehend, and do stuff. So I think, what is that one advice, or I mean not one, I think we've enjoyed a lot of parts of it. So I think, what is that advice which you want to just throw out there, and I mean want people to at least take bits and bits of it.
I will tell whatever I've said up to now, that is my advice, but I'll say one thing to wrap it up and also to make it about LGBT, because I've talked to a lot of LGBT people who are scared on, you know, what family would think, what society will think. And I have to tell them, we live in a world that discriminates against everyone for anything. If you are a Muslim or a different religion background, if you're a different caste background, I'm also left-handed. So actually sometimes if I go to a family function and I eat, I get more yelled at for eating with my left hand than I ever had.
Even I'm a lefty.
Than I ever had for my sexuality. And I've actually had more people have issues with that than my sexuality. So I always tell them, and you might as well, that, well, I use this hand to clean my ass anyway, so this is actually the dirty hand, not this one, for me. So anyways, The point is, you will be discriminated against regardless. And if you were to marry, let's say you're homosexual or LGBT and you decide to be with someone of the same gender, even if you choose to not live that life, like let's say you marry a woman, your mother would still probably bully that woman, that why is she this tall, or why is she short, why does she have freckles on her? I mean, it will never end. So rather than worry or spend your life worrying about what people think and trying to fit people's ideas of what people ought to be, it is better to take that same amount of energy and time and learn to build self-esteem and understanding and just accept that I just am what I am in this world. This is the body, this is the shape, this is the orientation I have, and people will hate it, people will like it, but it just is what it is. And to live with peace, to live with happiness with it, and let it be.
I think it's better to live for ourselves than to live for somebody else.
And when we truly live, not selfishly, but for the self, we also can live well for others. Because we take care of ourselves, if we take care of ourselves, we will also want to take care of others. And even usually we take care of others when we are taking care of ourselves, indirectly.
That's wonderfully said. I think that sums it up entirely. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, it was wonderful conversing. We learned so much, and I think you would definitely want everybody to understand. And the way you're doing things, I mean, you are an inspiration for a lot of us. So thank you so much for giving your wonderful time and keep doing the excellent stuff you're doing. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.